Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 126 of The Joy of Coding. Sorry, I just got really wet mouth there. Alright. Welcome to episode 126 of The Joy of Coding. My name's Mike Conley. Gonna be hacking on some Firefox stuff today, same as usual. Hopefully I'll go a little bit longer this time. Last week I was just back from vacation, so my stamina was a bit lower. Hopefully last week was enough of an exercise. I'm ramped back up and we should be able to go the full hour and a half to 2 hours. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. So, let's check it out. Here is today's agenda. Today is January 17th, 2018, episode 126. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. There is kind of a sense of what I want. Actually, I haven't actually filled it in what I want to do today. TBD. But I do already know what I want to work on. But I do want to let you know, I don't know how it's going to turn out. All of this is unplanned, unscripted. I'm making it up as I go. I'm really just trying to capture hacking in the raw. So I'm going to be hacking on some stuff, and things might go wrong, and that's okay. I might get pulled off track. I might go down some blind alleys. That's fine. That's the experience. So don't worry about it. You'll just join me while we go down the rabbit hole. So no plan survives breakfast. I want to point out that this agenda that we're looking at is actually something that you can have access to. So if you're watching this on Air Mozilla, scroll down to the additional links section, because there should be a link there to the agenda. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the video description down below. If you're watching this on Twitch, I'm about to drop it into the Twitch chat. Let me just drop a link. Whoopsie daisy. Here's the link. Close. Let me drop that into the Twitch chat. Boom. Agenda. And if you're watching this on Facebook Live, it's in a pinned comment just below this video. So that should give you access to the agenda. Along with the agenda, there is a link to rate the episode. It's a Google form. There's one per episode. Let me know what you think. I read everything that comes in, and I use that to help shape the episode. I'm actually going to use some feedback I got to shape today's episode a little bit. I'll have a little segment in here that's new. So I just put a link to that in the Twitch chat as well to rate the episode. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you think of this episode, and I'll listen. So today, what are we doing? Well, first of all, I have to make sure everything's working. You can hear me? Yes. I'm not dropping frames? Yes. And sounds work. Last week's sounds didn't work. I've got sounds working again.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels good. So heads up, one thing I want to point out is if you're watching this on Air Mozilla, a new Air Mozilla is actually coming down the pipe, and I'm switching over to it around the start of February. If you're watching this on like Facebook or Twitch or YouTube, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. But like for Air Mozilla folks, we're going to be switching to a new sort of back end for Air Mozilla. So it might be a little bit bumpy at first, hopefully not, but it might be. Fingers crossed it goes smoothly. I've been tinkering with the new system, trying it out. Andy from the Air Mozilla team has been really, really helpful, and hopefully things go according to plan, but you never know. So just a heads up that's coming. So one of the things I wanted to do today, I also want to quickly shout out the episode guide. There is an episode guide. It is completely community driven, so viewers like you contribute to it. And if you want to contribute to it, there are instructions on how you can send pull requests to the repository where the all of the episode guides are. And if you don't know what either of those things are, here is a guide for creating pull requests right here in the agenda. Woo! For creating pull requests, and I'll merge them in. And some of these episode guides are super, super handy. I find them handy as well. Some of them break down exactly what it was that I was doing, and that's super handy whenever I'm looking back and trying to figure out what happened. Hang on. I think I have a what happened.
What happened?
There we go. So, one thing I wanted to talk about very, very briefly today before we get into some hacking. I got a piece of feedback last episode about some of the keyboard shortcuts that I use to move around in desktop, to switch back and forth between applications maybe that I use in my editor. And I wanted to spend like a couple of minutes talking about that. Not too long, but I want to give you some sense of what it is that I do with the keyboard and how that works. So I'm not as keyboardy a user as some people are. I still use the mouse a lot, but there are certain things that I certainly use the keyboard for. One of those things certainly is like switching between applications. I'm using I'm on Mac OS here, so I'm constantly using like Command Tab to switch between applications. And so, for example, yeah, I'll often switch to like my editor, or I'll switch to the agenda, that sort of thing. Let me close all these as well. I like to start with a clean slate these days. So that's one thing that I do. I also use in Sublime, I have the Vim key bindings enabled. So if you're not familiar with Vim, it's a little intense, a little intimidating if you've never used Vim before, because there are a lot of keyboard shortcuts in that editor. It's all keyboard interaction. There's these weird states that aren't immediately obvious. There is a tutorial, I think, that's like a game that I found very useful. Vim game tutorial. So if you're not sure how to use Vim and you want to find out, yeah, it's called Vim Adventures. So if you're wanting to learn about Vim, Vim Adventures is great. And I find Vim, once you get the keyboard shortcuts, is a great editor. I love it as an editor. And so that's why in Sublime, which I use as my primary editor on this machine, I have the Vim key bindings available, because I've gotten really used to Vim. So the key bindings match more or less. So one of the things that I can do in Sublime that I can't do in Vim is fuzzy matching on the on file names. So I use this all the time to open a file. I use Command P, and then I get this little dialog in Sublime, and then I'll look for something like browser.js, and it's pretty good about finding the thing that I want. I don't even have to get the name fully right. I could be like ns, not doc shell. What if I say like cod shell? No, it wasn't that good. How about if I go da shell, so I forget the C or something. Like, it's actually pretty good at finding the thing that you want with some fuzzy matching. That's pretty nice. I use that all the time to browse for files. I rarely, if ever, go into the tree. Sometimes I do. If I don't know what the name of the file is and I only know where it is, then I'll go into the tree. But if I know the name of the file, I'll use this. In Firefox, I use SearchFox all of the time. And like, I'll use this keyboard. It's not really a keyboard shortcut. It's more of like it's a hack for doing quick searches in the URL bar. So if you were to go to SearchFox, if you'll notice what I just did, it's hard for me to zoom in. I don't think I can zoom in the interface very easily here, but I just typed in like DXR and then my query, browser.js. And I'm using DXR for historical reasons. The tool SearchFox is not related to dxr.mozilla.org, except they have a similar user interface. But this is how I switched over, is I switched from one tool to the other, but I kept the shortcut the same. So there's a historical reason for that. But you can set it to be whatever you want. So I can like put in the query in the URL bar, and then it shows up immediately. I don't have to go to SearchFox and then make my query. And you can do that for any search engine. I could add one for DuckDuckGo, for example. In fact, let's do that. So if I go to DuckDuckGo, I'm wearing a DuckDuckGo shirt today, and I bookmark the page, then one thing I can do is I can open the, how do I do this? I've got DuckDuckGo in other bookmarks, and then if I go into my bookmark manager here, let me pull up the bookmark manager. It's in bookmarks, all bookmarks, and it was under like other bookmarks, search bookmarks for DuckDuckGo. Here's DuckDuckGo, and then I have this like little menu down here, and this feature is like super buried in. You have to like click this little down arrow, and then I can add a keyword for the search, and I'll just put like DDG in the keyword. And what that means is anytime in the URL bar I want to do DuckDuckGo search, I'll go DDG hamsters. Nope, that didn't work. Hang on. Did I have to save it maybe? Separate tags with commas. Maybe I have to save it somehow. Thought that was gonna work. DDG hamsters. Oh, hang on. Did I do it wrong? Maybe I did it wrong. Oh, you know what? I did do it wrong. Hold on. Let me start over. It's been a while since I've done one of these. So suppose I go to duckduckgo.com. I right-click on the search field, and then I can add a keyword for the search. And that's where I can add DDG. So I right-clicked on the search field and added DDG as the keyword, and then I can go DDG hamsters, and then I get a DuckDuckGo search. And I can do that from any tab, DDG Mozilla. And then I just did a DuckDuckGo search. And so I did the same thing for SearchFox. If you go to searchfox.org and I choose Mozilla Central, then I can choose to add a keyword for the search, and I have DXR set for that. So that allows me to quickly do searches. I'm using SearchFox all the time, is the best. So that's one thing. What else? What else might be useful? I did want to mention, let's see, Vim. I use BoBoo all the time. Oh, in Sublime. Here's the other thing I use sometimes is I'll search for a line number. This is a similar key pattern for, I think this is the Vim binding, but I'll use Control G, and then if I know I need to go to line 245, then Control G 400 or 500 will take me to that line number. It's very handy. I use BoBoo in my Linux VM, so let me sign into beast mode. So BoBoo is like screen, which allows me to have these screen sessions, and I have multiple screen sessions. They're listed here along the bottom, and I can switch between them. So for example, I can toggle back and forth. I use this all the time. Control AA switches between the last screen and my current screen. Oh, apparently I can update the keyword in About Preferences #search. So if I were to go to About Preferences #search, yeah, I can add a keyword here. Interesting. So it looks like I've already got some for YT, YO. I had one for DuckDuckGo DU, but for some reason I had DuckDuckGo turned off there. But so for example, I could do Yahoo YA. So YA hamsters. Nope, that didn't work. Maybe it has to be #YA. Yeah, it does. That's kind of weird. So yeah, you could edit these so that they don't have the hash to make it a little easier on yourself, because I feel like that's a little trickier to get to, the hash up there. Thank you for that. Thank you for that observation. What was your name? Whoops, didn't mean to start Xscope. Your name is MibBWGABP. Thank you for that insight. So I use BoBoo all the time, switch back and forth between these screen states. I can create new ones with Control C. I exit to get rid of it. I can choose the one. I've got 3 listed along the bottom here, 0, 1, and 2. I hit Control A, and then I choose the number that I want to switch to. And then I Control A back and forth between them. And I find that very handy. I use Control D to detach, and that means that the screen state is still running. That's super useful if I think I'm going to be logging off, or I need to kill the SSH session, but I don't want to lose the session. I'll hit Control A D to detach, and then exit, and then I'll SSH back in, and then I'll rerun BoBoo, and then I'm back where I was. And that's super useful if you're doing some long-running operation. You don't want to keep the SSH session open. Maybe you're going to lose network connectivity soon, or you have to close your laptop. And then if you do it within BoBoo or Screen or something, you can detach and have it running in the background. I find that very handy. So I think that's all I want to mention. I went a little overboard talking about that, but those are some of the keyboard shortcuts and tools that I use. I use more, but these are the ones I came up with. I want to give a quick update about this bug we were working on last week. Form history migration, DB creation. I was getting this test failure. I found out that I think I had this idea last week, if we look at the notes, of using, what did I say? I had written it down. Test it, form history ready idea. This is going to be tricky since I don't have an Android development environment set up, so write and push to automation, that might super suck. We should modify the test so it waits for a form history ready event before continuing. That's exactly what I did, and it worked. It took a little bit of doing to get the code right, because I'd never written code for Fennec before, really, in a Java sense, but certainly not for their tests or anything. But in the end, this is the patch that made the difference, if the repository will respond. Come on. Here we go. So I made it so that when the form history init event is sent, we'll send a form history ready event whenever the database has been properly set up. And then I have this new function, block for form history ready, which sends the init function or the init message and waits for the ready function, or the ready message, sends the init, waits for the ready message, and then we'll block. And then I modified the test to block for form history ready before actually running the test. And that made it all go green. So I was very pleased with that. I'm waiting until early next week to land this because we're at soft freeze just before uplift. So we don't want to land anything too big or risky, like re-implementing how form history works until like the next cycle. So that's what I'm waiting for, is early next week. So that's it. That's my update there. And so now, what are we working on today? Well, I have a mystery I need to solve. And that mystery is this bug. Enabling tab warming causes the spinning icon to appear in new tabs. So let me actually drop that into the notes, into the agenda here. And that's this bug. So let me hook up the bug into the notes. I should have done this before the episode. I apologize. So here's the bug. Let me hook that up, and then I'll connect the notes as well. So my note here, that's not it. That one's done. So this is slightly different from similar perma-spinning bugs we've had before, I think. The behavior is, the steps, the ultimate behavior of a permanent spinner is very familiar, but the actual steps to get there are new, and I don't exactly understand how it works. I want to understand that, and today I'm going to start by demonstrating how that works. So here's what I'm going to do. I have, what we have here is a VNC. I'm connected via VNC to my beast mode machine. This is the XFC. It's an Ubuntu machine, but I'm using the XFCE desktop whenever I VNC server in. That's way better than what I was using before, which was just X server. And that was like a pain to do things like change focus between windows and stuff. So I'm going to start by reproducing the issue for you. So here's the issue. Currently, I have a nightly here. I've got tab warming enabled, just so you know. And here are the steps. I have a window. I send it to some URL, like about blank. Then, suppose I open a new window, a private browsing window, and I send it to about blank. Then, I go back to my first window, and I open a new tab. And then you get nothing. Nothing is here. Actually, while it appears that nothing is here, if you focus your mouse over certain areas, it becomes, I think, oh, wait. Where am I? New tab? Yeah. I thought I was getting, oh, yeah. I can click on things. Like, it appears like there's a website here, but we're not painting it. We're not displaying it. Like, notice my cursor shows up around certain links. I can see, like, the links of places to go to. But I don't know, where'd the links go? There's one. But when I click on one, nothing ever paints. Very strange, and I don't understand, and I don't get it, and I want to figure out how that works today. So let me write down what I already know. This is not it. It is this one. What do I know? What do I know so far? So I know that the tab child is being correctly created. I found this all out earlier, so I'm just going to dump all this stuff down. Correctly created. The pres shell and doc shell are being correctly created. The pres shell and doc shell are initially rendering, then they receive a message to not render, and then they're told to render again, but not to set the doc shell as active. And then I also know that if I then set the doc shell to be active after the if I set the doc shell to be active after I enter the bug state, once the tab switch is done, the dock shell is never set to be active. If I manually set the dock shell as active, then the problem goes away. So for example, let me redo the steps, and you can see. So I send this to blank, and then I open a new private browsing window. I send this to blank, and then I get here. Now if I open up a browser console, and I say, hey, for the selected browser, set the dock shell active state to true, then it eventually shows up. It takes a while, but it gets there. So what's the dealio? I don't know. So we have to find, like, I know why the dock shell isn't active at first. That is because, like, let me write this down. I know why the dock shell is not being activated after the tab switch, kind of. Whoops. I know why the dock shell is not being activated after the tab switch, kind of. The state isn't changing to state loaded, as in we haven't received the layers for the window after requesting them, and we usually only activate the dock shell when warming once the layers have been made available. Right. We've traditionally been setting the dock shell to active after we display the tab. And for some reason, that's not happening. Now, I added a bunch of logging to help us see what's happening. So let me run this all over again. And we can look at some of the logging, and maybe that'll help as well. So isn't this exciting? I have no idea why this is happening. So hopefully within the next little while we'll figure it out. Maybe we won't. I want to caution you that we might not, but maybe we will. And why is a private browsing? Is a private browsing window required? That's a thing to check. Like we can suss out more clues maybe by changing some of the variables of the steps and reducing it more and more and more. And seeing if we can find some patterns there. So notice that the window is blank. It's been requested, but it's blank. Tab should be blank. And if I go back up further in the log, whoopsie daisy, function F7, that allows me to go up. It's tab child 3 is told to render layers. We're told to make the pres shell active and to paint. So it's requested, we're waiting, and we're just waiting. What's interesting is that we never enter the spinner state. And I don't know why that is. We're always just blank. Why is that? That's the first question. So questions to answer. Let's put some checkboxes. The first question is a private browsing window required in order to reproduce this bug? If so, why? Second, why doesn't the window stop being blank, and why don't we eventually show a spinner? How come browsing is required in order to show the spinner? Okay, so let's try and answer the first question. That should be pretty easy. So let's quit and restart the test, the manual test. Also, oh, here's the other thing. I can't reproduce this with RR. If I attach RR, the problem goes away. So I suspect there's some kind of race occurring. That's the other clue. If I use RR to try to debug this, the bug goes away. So I suspect we're dealing with some kind of race. So let's open a normal, first of all, we browse to blank, Control P, whoops, not print, new window, Control N, I should say. And we'll send this to blank, and then we'll, yeah, okay, so a private browsing window is not required. No, a private browsing window is not required. Private browsing state is a red herring. So that's interesting. I wonder why that is. Why do you need the second tab, or why do you need the second window in the first place? Why is a second window required? Is it like if I were to just open a third tab in the same window as opposed to having a private tab or a normal tab? So like if I were to do this again, send this to blank, open a new tab here, send this to blank. Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe I just need to open a tab. Maybe it's a lot simpler to reproduce this. I just open a tab. Yeah, that's all I need to do in order to reproduce this is open a tab. Huh. Okay. So that's very interesting. And not the case in other situations. Or at least it's not the case on other machines where I've been warming. This only appears to be the case on my VM here and sometimes on Windows. But I suspect it's a race. So some people are going to see this and some people aren't. Like if I were to go send this to cbc.ca, I'll bet we'll get a spinner. Yeah, perma spinner. So I suspect some people might be seeing a perma spinner. So that's good. We're gonna if we can fix this, that'd be good. So my next question is, I'm gonna bold the no. Why doesn't the window, so it turns out I can reproduce this just by opening a tab on my VM instance in the same original window. So that's really handy. That actually simplifies things a great deal. Why doesn't the window stop being blank and why don't we eventually show a spinner? How come browsing is required in order to show the spinner? So this has something to do with an optimization that I added. Should be blank. Where whenever a window is, whenever we're switching to a tab, we can determine whether or not something should be blank. So here, there's a comment. It is often more desirable to show a blank tab when appropriate than the tab switch spinner, especially since the spinner is usually preceded by a perceived lag. We can hide this lag and hide the time being spent constructing a tab child layer trees by showing a blank tab instead of focusing it immediately. So if the browser is remote, we check to see if the tab, so if it has sufficiently loaded. So should be blank is we're not minimized or completely covered, and there's no tab parent, or we haven't sufficiently loaded, but that will never be true because of this. It's a local URI, so this is false, so this will be true. And this one has presented. fl.tabParent has presented. And has presented is set whenever layers come up. So m has presented. is set to true whenever a layer tree update comes in. So what I'm gonna first do, I think, is let me see here. What do we have in the code? DOM IPC tab parent m has presented equals true. That gets set here just before we fire Moz layer tree ready. So hopefully, if we were to repeat the same steps, let's do this all over again. But let's pay close attention to the pay close attention to the logging messages here. So the doc shell is active in tab parent 1, that's this one. And we have a Moz layer tree ready in tab parent 1. And then we open a new tab here. Okay, so let's go up and take a look at what happened. So here, we create, the first thing we do whenever we create a new tab is we tell it to set its doc shell to be inactive. We tell it, you know, set render layers to false, set doc shell is active to false. And then we set it to false, but I wonder if original layers are still coming up. Has layers are still coming up. Maybe. Then we request tab 1. We're loading the about blank. Why about blank? Set render layers to tab child. Tab should be blank is true. Request tab is remote true. Switch to tab 1. And we complete the tab switch. And meanwhile, then we unload tab 1. Tab child 2 eventually receives receive render layers false. That's interesting. And then it receives receive render layers true. It triggers a paint, which is great. And then we never get this message. We never get has presented. G browser selected browser frame loader tab parent has presented is false. It has never presented. We never received a layer tree update is the case. I'm pretty sure. So this m has presented equals true. Yeah, layer tree update was never called until, suppose we then click on one of the links. So I'm gonna create some space here, and then let's click one of these links that is hidden on this page. Where would some be? Here. And what was that? I saw something go by. So let's go back up. Debug shutdown. And then the blank goes away, so presumably we start rendering. Why did the blank go away is what I want to know. Blank, 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 true, and then should be blank becomes false eventually, right around here. But why? What makes it become false? Oh, I guess, so it's not that has presented changes, it's because the URL changes. And so sufficiently loaded becomes true. and then this becomes false, and so should be blank becomes false. That's what happens. That's what happens. Because this evaluates to false or false. And false, so should be blank becomes false. That's why. So we never do get layers. So this is what this is because, here, let me pump up the font so you can see what I'm writing. This is because once we navigate away from About New tab, then we stop satisfying the not that thing part of the has sufficiently loaded variable, and so we determine that the page is fully loaded and that we should show a spinner instead. Okay, so we've answered that question. So then the next question is, how come we're not getting any layers? How come we're not getting any layers? So I guess this all comes down to painting. Did we actually paint? Like at a deep level, do we paint and do we upload layers is the question. Because if we do paint and we upload layers, then it's the compositor that receives those layers isn't telling us that it's received them. And it's pretty tricky, because then we have to figure out why doesn't the compositor know? And that I really don't want to get into. So I'm going to assume that the reason is because we're not painting. We didn't paint even though we tried. And so I want to dig into our painting machinery if I can and figure out why we're not painting. So I have to figure out where the painting machinery is, and I think it's in the pres shell. But first, I know that there's something called end transaction that's used to say, hey, I'm done painting. So send the layer to the compositor. Is it this? And compositor bridge parent. Set composite to target. No, that's inside the compositor. Is it layer transaction parent? Shadow layers updated. This is again in the layer. This is in the receiving the updates. This is receiving on the compositor side. So it's got to be this. Yeah. Forward transaction. And forward transaction is called by end transaction, the client layer manager, and end transaction is called by something. And end transaction, the layer manager, we're going to call end transaction after we're done inside something called pres shell paint. So let's see if we ever enter pres shell paint. That's what I want to know. Do we enter this in our next tab? And I think I can figure that out with some degree of certainty using the debugger. So let's quit. Whoops, and I'm already running. I must have accidentally hit run somewhere. So here's the thing. I want to attach my debugger to the next content process that opens up for the next tab. Because I think if I were to try and reproduce this with a single content process, it actually doesn't reproduce, which is strange. I think that's the case. I should double check that. Can I reproduce this with DOM IPC process count 1? So that's a thing to check out. But for now, I'm going to assume not. But the good news is we do have, and perhaps this is related, although I think I tested this and it's not the case, we have what's called the pre-allocated process manager, where not long after the browser started up and showed me this, the next content process kind of got pre-allocated and is ready to roll. It's just sitting there. It's not consuming much in the way of resources, but it's ready for us so that whenever we open a new tab, we can do it very quickly. And let's find it. So if there's a lot of noise here, but I just did like ps aux grep Firefox to find all of the processes from Firefox, or that have Firefox in the name. There's 2 of them, or there's 3 of them here rather. This is the main process. I can tell because the profile was being passed to it. These noisy ones are the content processes, and the second one is probably the one I want. So 6059 is this tab, I'll bet. Yes, 6059. So 6207 will be what the next tab belongs to. So I'm going to copy that. Copy. And so I'm going to attach to 6207. And we're going to see if we hit Pres Shell Paint whenever we open a new tab. And if not, well, then we know, we can follow it back and find out why didn't we enter Pres Shell Paint, and then maybe we're onto something. While we're waiting for this to attach, I want to quickly plug a recent Hacks article about some stuff we're doing to make the browser even faster. WebAssembly is, we've got a new streaming and tiering compiler. I was just reading this before the stream started. You should check it out if you're interested in speed. So here's a quick plug on that article. Here I'll up and then hop 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 hop. There we go. Synchronize. So we're attached. Now I'm going to set a breakpoint in Mozilla Pres Shell Paint. Oh, and I have a bunch of other breakpoints. I'm going to delete breakpoints 1 through 13. Yeah, so we just have the 1. I don't need those other ones just yet. So now let's open our tab and see if we paint. We do. We enter paint. So something has asked us to paint. If we look at the backtrace, it's because a paint task was queued. That sounds right. And we're processing updates. So let's see what happens. Let's step through. Get the document URI, content document, get document URI. Be like, we'll see whether or not, what are we doing? If we're not on Android, we're not compositing, I think. If the paint composite flag is not included, then we need to allow content.js when the flag is set, since we may trigger Moz after paint events in content in those cases. So are we compositing? So yes, we are. Are we active? Is the Pres Shell active? It is not active. That's interesting. That might explain it. Then we just return. So why isn't the Pres Shell active? That's why. Oh, and then we hit it again. PM is active. Still false. So we found out why. Let me hit it again. PM is active. False. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete breakpoint 14. I'm going to add a new breakpoint at Mozilla Pres Shell Paint, but only if M is active is true. And we never hit it. That's why. We don't paint because the Pres Shell never becomes active. So that's the answer, but I still don't know why. How come we're not getting any layers? Because anytime Pres Shell Paint is called, the Pres Shell is not active. But we send render layers, and render layers is supposed to activate the Pres Shell. So let's do this all over again, but let's monitor. Let's detach, and we'll quit here. We're going to do that all again, but we're going to do something slightly different. Wait until that's loaded, and then we find out what the process is going to be. It's going to be 11688, attach 11688. Wait until that attaches. Do. Come on. Wow, this is taking a while. Why is attaching taking so long? Oh, there we go. Okay, great. That's what I needed. So I'm going to set a breakpoint in tab child, DOM tab child, receive render layers. I'm going to set a breakpoint in Mozilla DOM tab child, receive set doc shell is active. I'm also going to set a breakpoint in Mozilla pres shell. Oh, we've already got our pres shell paint, but I'm going to put another one without the condition. Okay, so continue. So we've got everything kind of ready to roll. Open the tab. Okay, we've received the render layers of false, because that's the first thing that we do after we create a new tab, is that we set the render layers, and we actually set the doc shell to not be active when we first insert a new tab, and then because we assume it'll be open in the background, and then we turn it on once we say we're going to switch to it. So that's expected. So tab child receive render layers is going to be set to false. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go to where we talk with the pres shell. Here. Is there a point where we talk to the pres shell? I think there is. Get the pres shell here. P pres shell. Okay, I want to watch location pres shell M is active. Hopefully I can do that. Okay, I want to see all the times it changes its state. Okay, let's continue. So the old value is true, then we've set it to false because that happened here. That's fine. And then we hit this lambda. Where am I? And receive render layers. Where am I? I'm at line 2659. Oh, 2659. Okay, so oh, we're in this clear force paint thing. Okay, fine, that's fair. We clear. Then we receive set doc shell is active is also false. That's fine. And then we receive render layers is true. And this is the one I want to pay attention to. So we've been told, hey, we're switching to you, render your layers. So you should paint now. So we see whether or not if we're enabled, we're not visible. So we add ourselves to the visible tabs. We're making it visible. Make visible. We have a puppet widget. And then we get the pres shell. We set is active to true. So the pres shell at this memory address had its doc shell set to true. P pres shell. Wait, where am I? Pres content. Oh, we're still inside the function. Enumerate resources. So PM is active. Still true. We do this stuff. So p pres shell is that address. P pres shell dot or m is active. Should be true. Okay. So it's still true. And then we say paint if needed. And we're done. And then we're inside this lambda function. And we're inside paint. Pres shell paint. PM is active. False. What? P this. 7FD000. And what were we before? Pres shell. Set is active. This is that. And A is active is true. What? So is the doc shell changing? Are we swapping? Oh, wait, is the pres shell changing? Are we somehow swapping pres shells? P Mozilla pres shell. Let's look at the old one. And let's see if it's still active. I expect it is. M is active. True. So what are we? Maybe we're some sub-pres shell? We're inside. We could be some unrelated pres shell, I guess. P this is we're FD000. Okay, let's continue. Oh, old value is false. New value is true. We end observing document. When we end observing the document, and that happens inside show, ensure visible, when we first do our reflow, whenever the load's complete, we ensure visible. In destroy pres shell, show document viewer destroy. Oh, because... No, I don't get it. Press context, ensure visible, show, and then destroy. What is this? Let's look at this. Previous viewer. There's a previous viewer, and then we destroy it. Oh, is it that we are sending render layers too early and we're asking the old pres shell? No, I don't know why. Why would this be happening? Document destroy. Previous viewer. What does M previous viewer get set? Viewer equals a viewer, and that happens when we set the previous viewer. When when we do an internal load or set up new viewer. If content viewer ensure start after the GC. So we're getting into the deep magic when we set up a new viewer. Previous viewer. Or when we restore from history. I don't think we're restoring from history. When we set up a new viewer. And set up a new viewer happens when we first install the doc shell. What if we're asking, what are these things? Content viewer, set previous viewer is an NSI content viewer, which is a document viewer. And a document viewer, what does a document viewer have? NS document viewer, search function set previous viewer, document viewer. Has the pres shell pointer. I think we're on to something here. I think we're on to something. But let's continue. New value is false when the pres shell is active because oof, this doesn't look right. Oh, I'll bet I know why. Because the pres shell has probably been destroyed. It was just destroyed. So we're in random memory now. So I should just say delete this watch point. PM is active. Is never active. That's why. Because the pres shell changes. Okay. Okay, I want to try something new. Let's detach. Let's actually, yeah, let's detach. And let's start over. But I want to try something new. Let me write it down. Is the pres shell getting swapped out? And we told the old pres shell to become active? And then the new one never becomes active. And we also want to figure out whether or not I can reproduce this with $myPC process count 1, but I haven't done that yet, and I don't know if we will, but we'll see. We're getting into it. Like I think we're making headway here figuring this out. Okay, so I've got that set up. So what I want to do now is, where are my breakpoints? I'm going to delete all my breakpoints. So no breakpoints. And I'm going to attach to the second process 24113. And then what I want to do is, whenever we first create the tab child and we initialize it, one of the first things we do is we create the doc shell, the top level doc shell, right here. I think what I want to do is make sure that I'm going to see whether or not that changes. if I can. Get web navigation, tab child.h. Return m web nav. So is that changing? And then is the underlying pres shell changing? Get pres shell. Get pres shell. What? Oh, that's tab parent. Tab child. Get pres shell. Here. Get the document, get the shell. But I know that doing that can sometimes run JavaScript, so we've been doing this like dance where we ask the doc shell for its pres shell. That would create a content viewer if one doesn't exist yet. Creating a content viewer can cause JS to run, which we want to avoid. So get the pres shell from the doc shell. So continue. So break in tab child Mozilla DOM tab child init. We'll start there. Whoa, I got like some character there. Here, I'm gonna actually detach. I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna restart because I suspect GDB is starting to act funny. So I want to attach to, oh wow, yeah, what is going on with the characters in the, oh wait, no, I'm just not seeing it right. 24113 is what I want attached to. 413. And what I want to know is the m web nav changing underneath the tab child? I don't think so, but maybe. And is the pres shell changing underneath that web nav? That's the question. I think it is. And if so, I want to know how it works. What a tangled web we weave, Gecko. What a tangled web we weave. Let me play some sounds while we're waiting. Oh, no, we're done waiting. All right, so let's break at Mozilla DOM tab child init. There we go. And then we're going to open our tab. And we should hit that. We're going to eventually create our mwebnav. What? Where am I? Sys handler. What? Why am I a system handler? Signal handler. How did I get here? What's happening? Did screw up? I think there is a SIGSys. Yeah, something about the sandbox. No stop. Suppress signals. Okay, well, I'm inside some Lambda now. That's no good, actually. I don't know if I want to be here, but let's just see what happens. DOM, tab, child, receive, render layers. Alright, del1. Receive, render layers, false. Okay, that's good. I can work with this. So p mwebnav. P ns-doc shell mwebnav. I think I can do that. And then M is active. Should be true. It's false. Huh. What's happening here? Enabled. Making hidden. Step. Make hidden. The doc shell. Then we get pres shell. P doc shell. Get pres shell. And how does that work? In ns doc shell. Get pres shell. Nope, it's not there. CPP. Here we go. And then it gets the pres context of itself. And then it gets the pres shell. And the way it does that is mcontent viewer get pres context. So doc shell mcontent viewer. There's no member named. What? Doc shell. Content viewer. Are you serious? Come on. There it is. But it's null. There is no content viewer. There's no content viewer yet. But I'm getting a pres shell. Get pres context. There's no content viewer. Then we create what? But I have a pres shell here. Okay. P pres shell get pres context is null. P pres context. Oh, now it has one. What's going on here, debugger? I don't think I can trust my debugger. That's not a good feeling. Pres shell get pres context. So now it will return one. So now is there a doc shell? Is there a content viewer? No. It's null. Can I watch that? may have confused things here. I think I may have confused the application that I'm debugging. All right. Oh, that's hilarious. I can just reproduce this by crashing and just by opening another tab here. So let's just do that instead of shutting down. 34103, then it's, oh, and then that one worked. And that one doesn't. So 34737. You know what? I'm just going to start over. I'm just going to start over. Let's stop looking for shortcuts. So rerun. Things got a little cockeyed whenever I first tried to set that breakpoint on the emitter. So 35284. And attach. I'm really going to step through that getting the pres shell part, because eventually I think that's going to give me what I want. This pres shell theory is pretty good, I'm finding, or I'm feeling. Instincts here are saying that it's pretty good. Okay. I'm going to break at wait, what do I already have? I delete 2.1. Can't apparently delete 2.1. And delete 3. Maybe I'll delete 2, but then I will set this breakpoint. Like, I'll be very specific. No, I didn't mean to quit. Shoot. Wait. Yeah, okay, I'm still active. I thought I'd said quit, and that would have been bad. So maybe if I'm super, super specific and say break on this signature, that will be enough. Okay. Yes. Receiver under layers. Okay. Okay. Good. So let's step through this again. We get the layer manager. We're going to make hidden. So clear any cache resources. We get the doc shell. Okay. And now I'm gonna step into this part, get pres shell. Pres context should start as null. And then I'm gonna step into get pres context. Bunch of the smart pointer stuff. Okay, here we go. A pres context is null. PM content viewer. Okay. So I'm going to watch, for example, watch location M content viewer. See if that changes. Okay. And then get pres context. I'm going to step into that. Step into get pres context. So I'm going to PM pres context. I'm going to watch that. Change that. Where am I? I'm a document viewer. Okay. I think I'd set a hardware watch point. Yeah, on content viewer, good. And then we have to do get pres shell because we have a pres context now, right? Wait, where am I? Where am I? I'm at line 1343. So I think we just finished in the scope. So now we have the pres context scope. Okay, and let's step into get the pres shell. PM shell. Okay, so we're gonna watch that as well. Okay, so if that changes, and I want to watch. Let's take a look at the active state of M shell. Is active. True. I'm gonna watch that. See if that changes. And I think those are all the watch points. So let's continue. I wonder if that's too many hardware watch points. Might be too much computing going on, I'm not sure. Where am I? Okay, clock time. Nothing, eh? Okay, well, this is really unsatisfying. I don't know why. I have a feeling the hardware watch points are confusing everything. I'm trying to be too clever. All right, let's shut down. Detach. Okay. Right. Eventually it showed up. It was taking forever, I think. What do I want to do? Smoky Fish says, I'm nuts. Thanks, Smoky Fish Jr. So let's see here. If the debugger's not going to give us clues, then, like, here's my theory. My theory is that we're embedding the doc shell after we've set the pres shell of the initial content viewer to be active. So when does, and doc shell embed, when does that happen? When we create an about blank content viewer, or create a content viewer. So maybe that's what we should look at next, the embedding function. So I'm going to stop using hardware breakpoints. I'm going to stop using watch points. Those were useful at one time. 53036. Whoops, see daisy. attach 43036. So it's 2:21 Eastern Time. I'd like to have this more or less settled within the next couple of minutes if I can. I really want to get this figured out. And then we can end the episode not necessarily on a solution, but on an explanation. Because usually knowing's half the battle. Knowing, it's half the battle. So if we know what's going wrong, I'll feel much better. But for right now, I don't know. So I'm going to set a breakpoint again on Mozilla. Oh, wait, what do I have? I'm going to delete my hardware breakpoints, watch points. And I'm going to keep that breakpoint. And let's see. Okay, so now I'm going to set a breakpoint on ns-doc shell embed. And ns-doc shell, one of the things that embed does is it calls setup new viewer, and setup new viewer will, that's another thing I'm going to set a breakpoint on, ns-doc shell setup new viewer. And one of the things that it does is it will what will it do? It was doing something. Set the previous viewer. So let's set a breakpoint on set previous viewer. On new viewer. So as break NSI content viewer set previous viewer. That's not it. Set previous viewer, as document viewer, as document viewer. There's a little bit of abstraction there. Set previous viewer. Okay. Receive render layers. Now it's being set to true. We're being asked to render, and then we embed. That's what's happening. We embed. Because we're actually loading something. Loading a tab. So we embed. And then when we embed, we set up the new viewer. PM pres shell, get pres shell is that. And then if I finish inside the embed, finish here, and then finish here, then p get pres shell. It was this address. It now changes. We have a new pres shell. That is what is going on. We are embedding after. Now, how come with warming disabled we don't enter this state? That's a real. I feel like that's something I can try and answer too. So I'm gonna detach, and then I'm going to open a new tab inside here that disables warming. I'm just gonna switch to warming. Whoopsie daisy. Warm. Turn off warming, and then shut down. Okay, and now I do that again. We grep, we get this process 47631. 631. So it's like a doc shell just got created for us. And then we tell it to that's probably okay. I know why that no, a private browsing window is not required if new tab preloading is not enabled, probably. With new tab preloading disabled. So new tab preloading is when we open a new tab in the background. We preload a new. Oh no! You don't need preloading because there's only one. You only preload the first tab. So sorry, I was wrong. I didn't mean to get excited there. This appears to be true. So yes, that is true. Yes, this appears to be true. So how come, the last question I want to answer is, how come this isn't a problem with warming disabled? How come we don't hit this if we set the doc shell to be active first instead of sending render layers? And how does that work? When are we set receipt? Set doc shell is active. We send render layers and then set the doc shell to be active. And receive set doc shell is active. Receives it, and then we just set it to be active. So why? Is it because of a race? Is that our race that we're dealing with? So we're gonna keep our breakpoints. Same breakpoints as before. And let's open our tab. Embed. So we embed first. Why? Backtrace, because that explains it. We embed first because of something. We're executing some JavaScript. Let's see if we can find out what the JavaScript is. Call dump JS stack. In content.js, line 40. Here. What? New context menu. We access the global, maybe. Or we set something? Is that why? Let's go up. Construct in the proxy, forwarding proxy. We interpret. We're getting a property, get an internal property. We call ensure inner window, create a doc. We get the document on the doc shell. We create about blank viewer. And that's when we embed. And then if I continue, then set new viewer is called naturally, and then receive render layers is called for some reason. Because content.js ran first. Why? When we're not warming, tab warming enabled, request tab, set tab state. If we're not warming, then we send browser doc shell is active to be true. Otherwise we send render layers. And when we send set doc shell is active to be true, process priority manager. Is it because we've changed the priority? So it suddenly starts, oh my goodness, could this be it? Process priority manager. Tab activity changed. Set priority manager, put entry. We change the priority, set priority now. Set process priority. Press enable. Is it because we might have a major race here? We might have a race here where, because set doc shell is active, increases the process priority, content.js runs sooner, which creates the needed doc shell sooner, which is why when the set doc shell is active message arrives, the render layers message arrives, the right pres shell is already around. That's crazy. Theory. That's a theory. So one way I can test that theory is by getting rid of the process priority changer. So let's change that. So I'm going to quit out of the debugger. I'm going to kill the process here. I'm just going to build binaries. And if we can, with warming disabled, still get the problem, then I think we have a pretty decent idea of what's going wrong here. And maybe even have a sense of larger problems, maybe with the tab switches, tab switch spinner, process priority. I didn't even realize we were doing process priority stuff. Tab activity changed. That's like, I didn't know we used HAL. Tab parent. When was that added? BoBoo added this. Visibility logic. Foreground tab. All right, let's run and see if this causes us to reproduce the issue with warming disabled. So first, is warming disabled? Yes, warming is disabled. Okay. Let us now open our new tab. Nope. We still, everything works properly. So that's not, I think, the reason of the race. For some reason, content.js, I still haven't figured it out why it's running sooner, but it is. Content.js is running sooner whenever set doc shell is active is being called. And that's why. Okay. All right. Well, we're on to something here, people. Tab activity. Oh, wait. I thought didn't I comment that out? Did I not comment it? Did I change? Oh, shoot. I changed it in the host machine. We haven't proved anything, people. We haven't proved anything. This is the problem of having virtual machines and multiple editors.
Hi-oh!
Didn't actually change the code. Didn't actually change the code. Always double check. Process priority. So didn't change it on the host machine, or on the guest machine, in the VM. So the theory might still hold up. And once we find the answer to this, I think I'm going to cap the episode there. Waiting for the build to finish. It's linking. Linking.
That's right!
Okie dokie.
I gotta hurry up. Come on, hurry up. Because this episode's almost done. Kyoto wants to know, can I get a TLDR of what you're doing with C++ and JavaScript? Oh man, we're trying to debug an issue where sometimes in certain situations you switch a tab in Firefox and then the content area doesn't paint. You know, the stuff that you want to see doesn't actually paint, and we're debugging a race condition. That's kind of the TLDR there. And we might be onto something, we're not sure, but I'm going to be uploading the recording of this episode after the stream is done, and you can watch it if you want to know what happened. So now we're in the state where tab warming is disabled. If I open a tab and nothing paints, then our theory that tab process prioritization is affecting the raciness, or the race is having an impact, will be supported. So let's find out. Okay, so it still paints. We still paint content. The theory, it has less weight. So I'm going to say not the process prioritization, probably. So I'm going to save that. Whoops, caps lock. So let me write that down. This theory, I'm not, why though? Why does it run sooner? Is it because of the process priority change in set doc shell is active, where maybe we increase the process priority of the content process, and so it gets to run content.js sooner? No, this doesn't appear to be the case. Unless activity changed. This doesn't appear to be the case. The getting rid of the process priority change doesn't cause us to recreate the issue with warming disabled. Okay. Sub theory. That's a sub-theory. All right, so I got to figure out what's going on here, but I'm not going to do it in this episode, I'm afraid. I'm going to be trying to figure it out after this episode at my desk. If you're curious, I'm thinking that based on how far we've gotten, I'll probably have this sorted out this afternoon. And if you're curious, keep following along in these notes. I'll be writing down my answers, and eventually in the bug that's associated with this note, 1423200, I'll put my final report. I'll break down what's going on, and hopefully I'll have come up with a solution. So that's it for episode 126 of The Joy of Coding. Thank you so much for watching. Let's see here. Is there anything else to say? Please rate this episode. There is a link in the agenda that lets you rate the episode, and let me know what you thought. For the people in Twitch who may be joined late, I'm going to put that link in there now to rate the episode. Boom. Please do let me know what you thought. I read everything that comes in, and it will help me make the stream better for you. And finally, do I have anything else? Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching episode 126. And I think I'll just be seeing you next week. And tomorrow, this next week, the uplift will have occurred. Firefox 58 is going to be coming out. It's going to be a great one. There's a lot of great stuff. Check out the plug I have in my agenda for the new streaming and tiering compiler that's shipping in 58, I think. Yeah, a 2-tiered compiler is going out in Firefox 58. It's going to make a lot of sites that use WebAssembly load and execute JavaScript much, much faster. That's very exciting. And if you're curious about that, check out the link in the agenda to the blog post. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. We're going to cap it right there. Thanks again for watching. Take care. See you next week. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.